Prabani Pracharine Nirvisesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Sri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Hare Krishna. Today we'll be discussing Bhagavad Gita as it is, chapter 2, texts 67 and 68. 67. Indriyanam hi charatam yanmano anuvidhiyate tadasya harati pragnam vayurnavam ivambhasi. 68. Tasmadyasya mahabaho nigrihitani sarvashah indriyani indriyardhebhyas tasya pragna pratisthita. So Krishna here he says, Indriyanam hi charatam. So the fourth question of Arjuna was, how does he walk, the self-realized person? That Krishna answered that he walks with his senses. He acts with his senses. It's not that he restrains like a gnani or an impersonalist. But those senses are engaged how he wants in the service of the Lord. So during the process of that, Indriyanam hi charatam yanmano anuvidhiyate, mind becomes constantly engaged during this engaging the senses. Indriyanam hi charatam yanmano anuvidhiyate tadasya harati pragnam vayurnavam ivambhasi. Even one of the senses on which the mind focuses with an intent to gratify, that can carry away a man's intelligence. So it is important that while we engage our senses in the service of the Lord, we should also make sure that the mind not try to enjoy one of those senses, even one of those senses. That means every sense has to be engaged in the service of the Lord. Otherwise, harati pragnam vayurnavam ivambhasi. Even one of the senses on which the mind focuses can carry away man's intelligence. Just like vayuhu navam iva ambhasi. In the water, there is a navam boat, but a strong wind can sweep away a strong boat like that. So the mind focusing on one sense can sweep away our consciousness. So therefore, tasmad yasya mahabaho nigrihitani sarvashah indriyani indriyardhebhyas tasya pragna pratisthita. So he says, Krishna says, therefore, tasmat, O Mahabaho, O mighty armed Arjuna, yasya nigrihitani, whose senses are controlled, indriyani indriyardhebhyah, from engaging from their sense objects, tasya pragna pratisthita, his intelligence is fixed. So Prabhupada categorically says in that purport, as enemies are curbed by superior force, similarly, the senses can be curbed not by any human endeavor, but only by keeping them engaged in the service of the Lord. One who has understood this, that only by Krishna consciousness is one really established in intelligence, and that one should practice this art under the guidance of a bona fide spiritual master, is called sadhaka, or a suitable candidate for liberation. So, it's not about artificially restraining senses. The whole idea is how to engage the senses in the service of the Lord. So, therefore, by superior force, the senses can be curbed, but not by any human endeavor. When Krishna is in the picture, he can, by the power of his attraction, he can conquer our senses from getting attracted to lower attraction. So we should worry about engaging the senses in the service of the Lord, not so much about controlling the senses from engaging in material activities. So there was this king who was ruling this kingdom, a very young king, very powerful. And one day his guru calls him urgently. And then the king goes, and the guru is on the deathbed, he's about to die. And the guru says something and dies. He says, "You're only as strong as your weakest link." And the king starts to wonder what it means. I'm only as strong as my weakest link. And then the guru dies without saying further. And then the king goes back and starts to think what he means. And then he starts to think, actually, somebody warned me a few days ago that the enemy is making plans to attack the kingdom. So maybe my guru is trying to warn me that you're only as strong. You're thinking you're strong, but you're only as strong as your weakest link. Like, for example, you have a chain. You form the chain by individual, these elements, the locks. Each one is locked. But if there is one weak link, one of them is weak, it's made of a thread, or it's got some defect, it's little torn or whatever, easily you can break it and the whole chain is broken, isn't it? The weakest link is the entry to the inside of the chain. So you're only as strong as the weakest link. And then he started to think, so I have these 5 people, my best people, strategically located around the kingdom. One is observing armies from this side, one is observing armies from this side, that side, all these kind of things. And let me assess how these people are. And then after spying, he finds out that one of them hides the fact that he has a wife, and that wife belongs to the neighboring country. She's actually a spy who has seduced him and made him marry her, but actually through him she is able to get all the information. And then the king finds out that this man is the weakest link, and immediately he arrests him and finds out all the details, and in time he is able to avert the danger. So you see here, these 5 men represent the 5 senses, and this kingdom is our consciousness, and the soul is the king, the spiritual master is the guru, or the Bhagavad Gita, advising us that even if the mind is weak, by focusing on one sense only, that particular person who has become weak and fallen to one girl who enters like a very helpful person, but actually it's going to harm. That is why the Shastra says, even one sense you improperly use it, it's going to cause havoc. Sometimes these kind of scriptural statements, we downplay these. Yeah, it's okay. What is there? What is there if you go and associate with people in a party? You know that you should not eat and you should not drink. It's okay. You talk to people. It's not going to harm much. Occasionally you watch a movie, or occasionally you do things. I know I'm in control of things. How does it matter? We may downplay those warnings of the scriptures. See, let's consider an example. Like, for example, if you go to this ocean, beaches, for example, in beaches, you will see that there are danger zones. Some zones are mentioned as danger, but sometimes some people sneak inside and they go for surfing and all that. And they come back and say it's all bogus. There's nothing danger here. I enjoyed a lot. It's the most cleanest of waters, beautiful waves. So some swimmers may swim in those areas without facing any danger. But by the law of probability, each day they spend with a calm water, the probability or the likelihood of a stormy water increases, isn't it? Out of every 10 calm days, one stormy water day will come. That's why the danger zone is there. So he may go 10 days and think there is no danger, but the 11th day, he might get caught in that stormy water and may face death. So just entering into danger zone, becoming complacent, thinking that, oh, this regulation doesn't make sense. I know better. It's just like this surfer entering the danger zone, ignoring the danger zone sign kept by the government. That makes them more prone to disaster. So the spiritual traditions, our Shastra often compares material existence to this vast ocean, where these sensual indulgences are compared to like the danger zones. And we explore those zones many times without seeing any consequences. It's okay, I can manage. I know what is good, what is not good. It's not going to hurt me. One or two things here and there. That doesn't mean those zones are safe. It just means that because of our past karma, the consequences of our actions are getting delayed. We are riding a good time. But sooner or later, those consequences will come. Or they'll become stormy. The stormy waters will come. It's a matter of when, not if. And when that happens, the temptations may impel us into such grievous mistakes, and there will be bad consequences. That is why Krishna here he's saying that who dwell on the senses indiscriminately will be swept away. Like in Shastra, we see example of Ajamila in Srimad Bhagavatam. He was a refined spiritual personality engaged in Krishna consciousness. But he got carried away by focusing on a scene where this prostitute and this lusty man are embracing, and that steals his mind. And then he triggers a whole set of activities, eventually leading him to become astray from his path. He becomes a debauchee, he becomes a criminal, a woman hunter, and so on and so forth, all kinds of sinful activities. Only by the mercy of the Lord, in the end, he is protected, because the Lord remembered, he has served me nicely. So the Lord inspired him to name his son as Narayana. And by calling his son's name Narayana, 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 like that, imperceptibly, he is making progress. So much so that at the time of death, that came to the fore, the power of the chanting of the name. Even though he called his own son, Mriyamano Harer Nama, Grinan Putropacharitam. He was Putra Upacharitam. He was calling his name, his son. But his son's name was Harer Nama, Narayana. Ajamilopi Agadhama. Still he got the highest benefit. Kimuta Shraddhaya Grinan. What to speak of somebody who chants with faith and with focus? That is the power of the holy name of the Lord. You see other example in our scriptures, Bharat Maharaj. He was the emperor, but he gave up everything and went to the forest completely focused on Krishna consciousness. But then he got attracted to a small deer. When the deer was born and the mother died, and Bharat Maharaj became very attached, he started to take care of the deer, and he was always thinking of the deer, and in the end he died thinking of the deer, and he became a deer in the next life. Of course, by his practice of Krishna consciousness, he was able to, he again remembered his past life. So he was very careful not to mix with the other deers and behave like a deer. He would go around the hermitages of great sages. He would subsist on dry leaves, very austere. And then again, the next birth, he was born as a great transcendentalist, Jadabharata. He chose to be dumb and deaf and ignorant person, but he was ridiculed, he was hurt, injured physically, mentally, but still he was always focused on the prime goal of his life to go back to Godhead. So he was withstanding, forbearing all of those inconveniences. So you see great personalities in the scriptures. There are examples how even one sense is misused, it can lead to devastating consequences. In Kali Yuga, especially in this age, what to speak of one sense, we are attacked from all sides. All our senses are carried away by attraction to material things. But the good news is that, as I said, we shouldn't worry much about controlling so much. We need to worry about engaging. Our worry should be how more we can engage in Krishna consciousness, not how less we engage in Maya. Automatically, less engagement in Maya will happen as a consequence of engaging in Krishna. The Ambarisha Maharaj example is quite often quoted by Prabhupada. How Savai Manah Krishna Padara Vindayor Vachamsi Vaikuntha Gunanu Varnane Karau Harer Mandira Marjanadishu Shrutim Chakarachyuta Satkathodaye. So, first of all, he focused his mind on thinking about the lotus feet of Krishna. And then he focused his words in describing the glories of Krishna and his spiritual abode. His hands in cleansing the temple of the Lord. So one may say, oh, is he king or he's a devotee working in the temple? He's a king. How could he do all of this? He has so many duties. So that is another interesting thing. What we should understand is his mental state. We are where our mind is, isn't it? I may be here physically doing something, but my mind is somewhere. That's where we are, our soul. So the soul always does activities with the subtle mind, subtle body. Of course, with gross body as well. What is important is our bhava within. As Krishna says, Yam yam vapi smaran bhavam tyajatyante kalevaram tam tam evaiti kaunteya sada tadbhava bhavitaha. At the end of life, whatever bhava you cultivated in your mind, what is your subtle body? What is the inclination of your subtle body? Our subtle body is being built as we live life. The subtle body may become like a human or a cat or a dog or a monkey or a serpent based on how we shape it based on our association, our thought process, our desires, our activities, our subtle body is being shaped. So Ambarish Maharaj, he was always thinking of serving the Lord. His hands were engaged in serving the Lord. Even though physically he was ruling, that was also the Lord's service. But he was always in this mood of serving the Lord with his mind, with his hands, with his words, with his ears, with his legs. So, this is what engagement is. We should engage every possible sense always in serving the Lord. Ambarish Maharaj is a classic example. Even though he was engaged in his worldly duties, he was fully Krishna conscious. So, sometimes people say, one person asked me in my office, so he's also devotee. So he said, so you are we are working in the office and you have a deadline and you focus on certain project. You have to think about solving a problem. And how can you think of Krishna? Krishna says, Tasmat sarveshu kaleshu ma manusmara yudhyacha. So we all have worldly duties and we have to focus on that, isn't it? The engineer, while constructing a pillar, he has to focus on where to place the pillar properly, isn't it? Even Arjuna, he has to shoot, aim the arrow at the right point and shoot. So is he thinking of Krishna at that time? So what I told him, gave a couple of examples as given by our acharyas. So one is that of a father who goes to office, but his dear son, small child, is at home very sick. So the father is working in the office, but he is always in the background, he's always thinking of his child. Oh, how my child is, whether he has slept properly, whether he has taken the medicine properly, eaten properly. He'll call occasionally, check on his wife, how the son is doing. Whatever he is doing, he cannot forget his son. Why? Because he loves his son naturally. The other, even more esoteric example the acharyas give is that of a woman, a married woman who has got a paramour. So even though she is at home, she is doing all her household duties. In fact, she does it very nicely, so nobody gets doubt. She's always thinking of the paramour. Oh, when will I go meet that person? Awaiting that opportunity while doing all these chores very nicely. So there is a way when we think of Krishna always, which is when we love him. In our conditioned state, because we don't love Krishna, we cannot always think of Krishna. That is why a minimal set of rules and regulations are given. You do this and don't do this. Do what? Do the chanting. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Whatever number of rounds you have taken an oath for, 1 rounds, 2 rounds, up to 16 rounds, or even more. Sometimes people on Ekadashi days they do that, which is good. And we have a minimal set of don'ts. Of course, the 4 big don'ts: no meat eating, no intoxication, no illicit relations, no gambling. So these are the big 4 pillars of sinful activity. So if we refrain from the sinful activities and we focus on pious activity, the supreme pious activity is hearing and chanting of the Lord's names, then we progress. Then we come to a stage where all our senses will be engaged, like Ambarish Maharaj. We develop love of Krishna automatically. Nobody has to force. Currently, we are being forced. We are forced by the words of the spiritual master, which is important. If we are not forced, then our mind will take away. at least because of the force, positive force. We do strict sadhana. Whether you like it or not, you have to chant, finish your rounds. Whether you like it or not, do the reading, attend the arati. This is a discipline followed even by a materialist to become successful. You go ask any successful materialistic person who has achieved success in his field, the first thing they will say is discipline. You go build the body. You need extreme discipline to go to the gym day in and day out, whether you like it or not. You don't feel like going, it's hard work. You don't even want to get up out of the bed and start to drive and go to the gym and work hard for 1 or 2 hours. It's hard work. You don't like it, but discipline. It doesn't matter I like it or not. The purpose is more important. I'm going to become like this. Then you become disciplined. And once you get to a stage where your body is ripped and you are feeling confident, energy, and you automatically go there with all enthusiasm. So, like that, as you engage more in Krishna consciousness, automatically you start to do things. Raga stage. We are in currently sadhana. Sadhana bhakti has two stages. One is vidhi bhakti and raga bhakti. Vidhi means by the order, by the regulation of the scripture and the spiritual master we are doing. Raga means we are doing naturally, spontaneous attraction of Krishna. So Prabhupada, one time he gave a class. He contrasted the genuine renunciation of the great Goswami, Srila Rupa Goswami, the founder of the present day Vrindavan village, with that of some of modern imitators. So these impostor renunciants, they simply come to beg some chapatis just to sell them in the market to buy BDs. BD is a cheap variety of cigarettes. So Prabhupada explained that following the rules and regulations of devotional service, Vidhi Bhakti is essential. First there is Vidhi Bhakti and then Raga Bhakti. So in the beginning stage, we have not awakened our natural love for Krishna. Therefore, we should be careful not to act whimsically. So we may be at a disadvantage by birth because we are not naturally attracted to Krishna, but it is not a disqualification. We may be at disadvantage, but we are not disqualified. That is why in the purport, Prabhupada says one should take the guidance from the bona fide spiritual master and follow the rules and regulations, Vidhi Bhakti, and then gradually we will become expert in devotional service. At that time, it's like, as I said, the senses, even if they bite, it's like the snake bite, but fangs are removed. There won't be effect because you don't feel any attraction towards the sense gratification because you are attracted by Krishna's service with the senses. I'll stop here. Anyone has any questions or comments, feel free to unmute yourself. Bhagavad Gita as it is ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Nitai Gaur Premanande, Hari Hari Bol, Hare Krishna.